Hello and welcome to another edition of Conservative Corner. We are a monthly talk show based at the wonderful studios of New TV here in Newton, Massachusetts. We have been doing this for several years. The exact number I cannot say because we've had such a good time over the past several years, and we've interviewed many wonderfully interesting people on a monthly basis in that time period. We cover issues ranging from the specific pertaining to the Newton-Brookline area or the general pertaining to state politics and national politics. And that's what we're delving into today. Because specifically, as many of you know, either are well aware of or will be aware soon, there is a statewide election coming up in November. Now, obviously it's May, and it will soon be June, and not too many people are thinking of the statewide election and the national election as well. By national election, I of course mean the elections for Congress and the Senate. We're delving into summer. People will be tuned out and focusing on summer, especially after the harsh winter that we've had. But nevertheless, the elections will be upon us, and we will delve into them, and we will be actively promoting and interviewing our candidates. By our, I mean the Republican Party candidates who will be running in the fall. And one of the issues that we have in this state is that we have many issues pertaining to the Democrats who run this state. But as you've seen and are aware of, the Democrats have a monopoly on political power in the state, and that's a problem. Every statewide position is run by a Democrat, and every congressional seat currently has a Democrat in it, and that is 9 congressional seats in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts where there is not a single Republican. Not only that, but in New England there is not a single Republican in Congress. That has to change, and we're working to change that as best we can. When you have a one party ruling a state, things tend to go awry. Things are not really up to par, and that's what we have here today. When you have one party in Congress from the state, that's not good either. That's actually terrible, especially when the ruling party is Republican and you just have 9 Democrats in Congress. And those Democrats really are backbenchers. There's nothing that they can do or say to change and affect policy on a national level, and certainly not for our Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So with that being said, we do have congressional candidates, congressional races, and we are very pleased tonight to have with us a gentleman who is running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District. That is the district from Brookline all the way down to Fall River and New Bedford, and it is Barney Frank's former district. I like to say Barney Frank in the past tense, since we tried so long to get him to retire. He finally did. But now we currently have another congressman that we're trying to get to retire. So our candidate for this district, for the Republican Party, is a gentleman named Tom Stalcup. And we're very glad to have you, Tom. We're so pleased to have you. And
thank you, Tom.
And you and I, we met at the convention,
yes.
And I was very glad to hear. By the convention, I mean the Republican State Convention. And I was very glad when you were part of our delegation in this district, which includes Brookline, and you sat with us through that very long convention in Worcester. And you announced then and that you were running for Congress, and you got all your signatures, and they're in the process of being certified, and you're here, and this is great. We're very, very pleased to meet you, to have you here, and to proceed beyond that. So tell us a little about yourself, your background, where you come from, and then we'll get into the politics of things.
Yeah, sure. So I'm about 7 years living in Brookline now. I grew up in Cape Cod and Falmouth. My dad was an oceanographer at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. I went to Woods Hole School and Falmouth High School. I played in the basketball team there, went on to college, played some junior college basketball, ended up at Florida State University where I got a PhD in physics. So
in physics?
Yes.
So you're a physicist?
Yes, I am. I'm a physicist, that's right.
Wonderful, a physicist, that's great. Continue, please.
Sure. So, and after college I started a business. Actually, I went directly into industry and I worked for an electronics company. Made a spin-off company of my own that I've been running since 2004, and we design, produce, and sell weather stations all around the globe now.
You sell weather stations?
That's right.
That's amazing.
That's right. It's a very interesting job, from the Antarctic all the way to the Arctic, northern Canada, Europe, Africa, Yeah, so basically we make the weather stations themselves, the modems, and the solar panel powered batteries, as well as this one standalone unit. And we also host the data on a server called datagarrison.com, and people can go there, and the users and the customers will access their data without having to travel out to their weather station. It's all remote. And back in 2003, 2004, when we were working on with this company, they really had no real way of doing that. So they put me on that project, which then became my own company.
So would you call yourself a small businessman?
Yeah, inventor, entrepreneur, I guess. Yeah,
and you're a
electrical
physicist
engineer.
above all.
Yeah, I took physics because I just loved it in high
Yeah.
school. And I knew immediately junior year I wanted to be a physicist because I ate it up.
Okay.
You know, how does the world work, you know?
And you're not a politician.
No.
You've never been run for anything before. You've never been in any organized politics. You've never worked on any campaign, Republican campaign, that at least in the Boston area or in the state. And that's a good thing. That's what I'm getting at, because you're not a politician. Neither was our president for the longest time, and neither were other people that were running for. For example, our candidate of choice, whom we nominated, Mike Minot, he's also not a politician. So we prefer in our party to get people coming from the private sector, people who are self-made, people who are productive and who are entrepreneurs like yourself, and to step into the fray, so to speak, not because they need to financially or otherwise, or because they're career politicians and are just looking to move from one stepping stone to another in the party, but because they feel as though they want to contribute, they want to make a difference, they want to get involved, and that was really the start of politics in general in this state and in this country, where our founding fathers wanted the people from the private sector, you know, the gentleman, the farmer, the carpenter, the lawyer, whomever, to get into politics and to stay there for a finite period of time, and then to leave after that period of time is over. In other words, not to have them stay there forever. However, what we've had and what we currently have in our congressional delegation are politicians, Democrat politicians, they're all Democrats, who have been there pretty much forever. In other words, they're almost like career, teachers or unionists who just get into a job, a government job, and they stay there forever. We have, for example, Ed Markey, who's been there. I mean, he came to my high school to speak in 1977 when he first got elected, and he's running again for the Senate. My God, that's a very long time. And now we have Jake Auchincloss, who's currently the congressman from this district. He's been there since 2020. And I know him and have known him for a while. He originally came as a city councilor for the city of Newton. We didn't know much about him at the time. However, at the time, he really he initially graced us and then cajoled us. By us, I mean the Republican Party of Newton, into hosting him and actually giving him a financial contribution when he ran for, he was running for city council initially, because he was an independent. And so we gave him one. And this was when I was chair of the Newton Republicans. And lo and behold, within 6 months to a year, I believe, he became a Democrat. So we felt hoodwinked. Yeah. We felt deceived, and we were. And many in our party don't forget that, and I certainly haven't. And then he parlayed that into a run for Congress when Joe Kennedy retired, and he's been there ever since. Now, bear in mind, he did not, in the Democrat primary in 2020, he only won with 22% of the primary. Right. So the Democrats were very split, as they were at the time. And then he's been reelected since then. Now, there's been a trend in the state where the congressional Democrats keep getting reelected. And in other states, that doesn't happen. You have turnover in other states. You have competitiveness. And that's what we're looking for now, competitiveness, to get him out, because he needs to get out. And what are the things? Tell us some of your policies or what differentiates you from the current congressman Mr. Auchincloss?
Well, the biggest one I would say is, I'm not bought and paid for by anyone. I'm my own self-made person. I have no one really funding my campaign at this moment. And Auchincloss, on the contrary, has Big Pharma funding his campaigns. And you can see it in his policies. He's trying to reduce prescription drug costs, but only doing so by doing half of the problem. The pharmacy, the benefit managers, the middlemen between the Big Pharma and the patients. And that's just half of the problem. He won't go after the pharmaceutical companies, and someone needs to go after them. Basically, he's a representative of the pharmaceutical companies in Congress, and we can't have that now. Our costs are way too high. So if we're going to bring down costs, we have to tackle the entire problem, not shield half of the problem and only take care of half of it. And even what he's doing now, he's taking care of the pharmacy benefit managers by saying, okay, you can't get these rebates anymore. Well, does that mean that all that money will then go to his supporters, his big pharma funders? And what's going to stop them from raising prices even more?
Not only that, but would you say, this is my observation, that he's voted lock and step with the Democrats?
Yes.
They're like really a communist Politburo, in that you have to vote their way. You can't be independent, and they don't have any latitude for anyone who votes differently from them. And especially with the Democrat leadership of the state, it's their way or the highway. And if you go against them, then they'll find ways to shall we say, get at you or try to push you out eventually. But that's what I'm seeing, and that's what people in this district are seeing, that he votes the party line all the time.
Right.
All the time.
And that's the problem. I think in either party, I think that's a problem. And I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be voting for policies, not for party. You can see by his votes and by his history, how he hoodwinked your committee to donate to him, pretending to be a Republican, maybe he really was at the time, but to switch to Democrat in order to win, because he knows that Republicans have a hard time winning in this district. That's just, and then to vote the Republicans 97% of the time, or whatever it is just, it's showing what he is. He's exactly the type of person you're talking about. He went to Harvard and studied government. This was probably his plan from day one. He wants to climb the ladder. And in my school district, we have a principal in the high school right now who is a teacher who just stumbled into becoming principal because he's a good employee. He didn't, climb the ladder like other employees. When I see that happening, you can see them a mile away. People just want to get to the next step. Not for any reason like I'm going to fix things. They just want to have that position. And that's how I see Jake Auchincloss. Every decision he's made, from when he was in the Newton Committee to the position he is in the Democratic Party right now as a congressman for this district, his votes are not, first of all, not good for the country, but also they're good for him, because if you vote with the Democratic Party 100% of the time, or close to 100% of the time, you will then get good committee assignments, and then you might get maybe an ambassadorship at some point, and at some point you can be president. And so I think that's where his career path is going. He wants to get to the next level, not necessarily solve the problems of truly lowering the cost.
And Tom, he knows that eventually both Elizabeth Warren and especially Ed Markey, our senators, they're getting old. They're getting into their 80s. They're going to retire eventually or something. They will. And so that's the next step for him. And I think that he's really positioning himself for that next step.
That's a good point.
But also I think that Auchincloss, like the rest of the Massachusetts delegation, all Democrats, they have absolutely no clout, no power in Washington. Why? Because they're the party in opposition. The Republicans, thankfully, control the House. We control the Senate. We control the presidency. So, when they're in Washington, all Auchincloss can do is yell, scream, holler, give speeches to whomever will listen, but he has no clout, he has no power whatsoever to affect legislative change, to really even to bring money back into the district. He's really on the sidelines. I would say that the average member of the Newton Republican, or any state or town or any city or town Republican committee member, has more power than he does, because he has no influence whatsoever. In other words, Jake Auchincloss, like the rest of them, is irrelevant to the running of this country, to the
That's right.
to the power structure in Washington, and we have no viable representatives, no political
right.
clout in Washington, and we need that. We desperately need Republicans as Congresspeople to go to Washington. Now, should you get elected as into Congress, you would have that clout, you would have that power, you would have that influence to bring what is necessary back to the district, back to the state. You would be a voice. You would be a very good voice. Now, I'll bring us back to when Scott Brown was the Republican senator briefly for 2 years. He was such a celebrity. He had such a voice, and he had such power in Washington, because it had been a while since we had a Republican senator, and quite frankly, it's been a while that we've had a Republican congressman. And I dare to say it's been really 30 years, and since we've had a Republican congressman, and those were the two Peters, Peter Blute and Peter, who's God, it's been so long I forget his name, from the North Shore, but nevertheless, that's so ridiculously long to be without a Republican in Congress. And you're running, and others are running, and we need to have that happen.
That's right. That's right. The prices have to come down now, and if you're going to try to do that in Massachusetts, you're going to need a Republican in Congress and hopefully in the Senate as well. And that's what I hope to be able to do. And he goes after. Basically, they're basically starting their campaign for presidency. That's what they're doing right now. They're going after the administration to 2 years early, and that's their game plan. They want to win. Of course, they want to win the midterms, but they're not. They think they're going to win easily here in Massachusetts. We got to tell them they can't. But in other places, they're going to try to get some seats, and but they're really actually going after the presidency. They're going after Trump. They're going to try to beat J.D. Vance or whoever runs next, and to start that. To focus on that now rather than lowering prices and lowering the costs of our constituents here is just not a good move.
But all this Congressman Auchincloss does, when I see him on TV, is it's Trump bashing, Trump bashing, Trump bashing. And I mean, how often can you keep doing that when it just becomes so repetitive? It just becomes so boring, and that's all they can do. That's all he can do. That's all he does do, because he has nothing, no other creativity in what he needs to do for our district, for our country. Now, currently we have, I believe it's 218 Republicans in Congress as opposed to 211 Democrats, and there's 5 vacancies for whatever reason. And the balance is very tight, and it could shift. I don't think it will, but it could shift. But in order to keep the Congress, which we need to do, then we need people like you elected. And those who say it's impossible for a Republican to win in this state, then I just point to the aforementioned former Senator Scott Brown. Nobody thought that he would win at the time. He didn't even have enough money for lawn signs. People used to make up their own signs, and he won. He did win, and we're hoping that that will happen again with you and the others running for Congress. Now, yes, it's true that in this state, the Republicans, we're pretty much backbenchers in the state. But it doesn't have to be that way. And quite frankly, in this corner of the country, that's the way it is. But you're a very mainstream fellow, a mainstream guy, in that you're self-made, you have your own business. And again, you're exactly what people want to see, in that you're not a career politician. You're doing this not because you need to do it. I don't think it's an ego thing with you, certainly not, but because you want to do it, because you want to get into public service. You have your own business. You don't need to do this, but you're doing it. So why, if you could just elaborate a bit on that theme, why would you want to jump into this fray?
Just because of the divisions in the country right now. My coming to the Republican Party was a very interesting path. I originally was a Democrat, and I do remember Scott Brown being elected. But when I saw what happened to Bernie Sanders when Hillary Clinton, they rigged that election.
Oh, sure.
That left a bad taste in my mouth.
The Democrats eat their own.
Yeah. And again, I wasn't a big Clinton fan at that point anyway. But after that happened, that was the last straw for me. I said, this is just ridiculous. You know, that's not democracy. We're in a democracy. So democracy, you know, we need to keep our democracy. So I felt that I'd be much more comfortable in the Republican Party because I have ideas. I was on the school council. Your prior guest in the previous show in the school committee, I guess, in Newton. And I watched the previous airing, Learning First Brookline. I saw him on there, and he and I went through the exact same experience back around the COVID times, where this woke equity agenda was forced down everyone's throats, and it didn't help the people they were trying to help. The grades didn't get better, but everyone, you know, did all this virtue signaling. And at that point, that was the first step into politics for me, was joining the school council, because I saw these big problems. People were complaining. I had a woman whose child wanted to say, oh, I love that book. That's when I read. It was like 3 or 4 grade levels above what he was supposed to be reading. They wouldn't let him read it. And she said, what's going on here? I said, oh, I'll go become on the school council, see what I can do.
Well, you know, I think that's something which certainly the Republican Party is fighting against, and that is equity, where you have to have results, the same results for everyone. Well, you're not going to have the same results for everyone, and you know, not in the school system, and certainly not in sports. It just doesn't happen that way. But they want equal results for everyone. That really goes against the American spirit, and that certainly goes against the Republican Party, where we're a party of achievers. We're a party. We're the party that does things and gets things done. We're the pragmatic party. We're not the ideologues. And as is our president, and as is the leadership of the Senate and the House, we like to accomplish things. And again, our party is comprised of entrepreneurs like yourself. Our party is comprised of people who don't get into politics for self-aggrandizement, so to speak, or to push their radical left-wing agenda. You know, and there's another issue that's really prevalent in the state, and that is the issue of illegal immigrants in the state. Now, they came here en masse under Biden, and once the federal government was taken over by the Republicans, they cut off all funding for the illegals in every state, including Massachusetts. So whether people realize it or not, your state taxes are paying for those illegals that are in this state that were brought in by the Biden administration, and they're here. And so we have to pay for them. Now, this governor and this congressman, Jay Auchincloss, they support that, but they don't want to talk about it. It's a very uncomfortable issue for him.
And they're blocking the audit.
Yeah, and they're blocking the audit. But it's very uncomfortable for somebody like Jay Auchincloss to talk about illegals in the state and the amount that we taxpayers have to pay for them. Why? Because his party is in favor of illegals. Therefore, he's in favor of funding illegals. But of course, he doesn't have to pay for them, or maybe he does with his taxes, but the rest of us do.
They create a boogeyman. The boogeyman right now is ICE. They have this big campaign of how bad ICE is, and if you hate ICE, if you say anything good about immigration, or anything bad about immigration, you say, oh, you must like ICE. ICE is bad. It's a divide and conquer mentality, and the Democrats have been doing it for a long time. They're doing it in this. You know, you can't. What Biden did, what was wrong? The open border policy. You know, get in line. That's what it should have been. What I told you, I was here for most of 7 years. For 2 of those years, I was in Florida. I was in Florida the entire time of the open border policy. When I came back to Brookline, I couldn't believe. It felt like a third world country. We had these scooters going up and down Beacon Street the wrong direction, going through red lights. You probably see them here in Newton as well. And they don't speak English, and they weren't here before. And they're very dangerous. One of them threatened to pull a gun on me one time. Over by my office. He was trying to cut in front of me, and I wasn't going to let him cut in front of me. He said, "Come over here," and had his hand in his pocket. I was a bit threatened by that.
And you know, Tom, these people are here illegally. They don't belong here.
Right.
They need to be deported, but they were sent here because we were a so-called blue state, a friendly state to them under the Biden administration, and here they are. So, you know, for all of our friends and neighbors and your constituents in Brookline and Newton, and and Attleboro and Fall River and New Bedford, when they, I want people to take a look at the hotels that are in the area, and realize
Yeah.
that you know, a lot of those places don't have vacancies. Why? Because they're taken up by illegals. And who's footing the bill? We are footing the bill, and that has that has to stop. But you know, there's been no voice in this state against that. The governor is for it. Jake Auchincloss is for it, because he does what he's told by his boss, Hakeem Jeffries, and the other one, Catherine Clark, who wants to be the House Majority Leader. God forbid if that should ever happen. So he's a foot soldier who does what he's told by his bosses. I mean, he's at their beck and call. He really is.
Right.
For Hakeem Jeffries, who wants to be Speaker of the House, God forbid, and the others, and he will do what he's told to do. Republicans in Congress are not like that. You have a lot of mavericks who will openly defy and challenge and debate the Speaker of the House and the leadership on a myriad of issues. And I can sense that with you, that you would be in that category, certainly.
Sure. I mean, it's common sense. You don't make enemies. Don't call people names. Talk about the policy. What did this policy do? How is it affecting people? I spoke to constituents in Fall River who told me they have a 2-hour wait in the emergency room now because of this influx of new patients now using it just for primary care. And they have
those are illegals, of course.
Yes, that's what
here.
they're telling me. And I was also told there's some housing, that some veterans aren't getting the housing that they should be getting because the money's going elsewhere right now. And now we heard at the convention that they're blocking the audit. And
you know, it's very
Nora
strange.
Haley's not going to win the election if she gets an audit. I think that's why.
I'm quite sure of that. But you know, it's very strange that we have a veteran who's in Congress, but he's a Marine, but he's a left-wing Marine. That's a Jake Auchincloss. That's really a contradiction in terms, but he is. It's the strangest combination I've ever seen.
He's
really,
left-wing now.
I really don't get it. How one flows from the other.
Yeah.
Tom Stalcup, this is the fastest 30 minutes in Talk TV, and we have a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. So if you could just. I'll give you, obviously, the summary, whatever you'd like to say to the people.
Sure. I mean, I'm a Republican. I didn't start out as a Republican, but I am now. I've been welcomed into this party in Massachusetts. I think it's a great party to be in. Has the biggest tent today, and we got to make it that way. People like me are welcome. I was a former Bernie Sanders supporter, but now I've seen Bernie Sanders just take his seat and do what Auchincloss says, and listen to Schumer and the Clintons. And that's not the party that I want to be part of. And I think if we keep the Republican Party having a big tent and where people like me can come in, I think we have a good chance of winning more seats, not just in Congress, but in the State House. Because I do believe that, that it should welcome people with my points of view. And it's common sense. I mean, it's like you said, there's the equity, there's the immigration crisis, there's the affordability crisis. All these crises are best handled by Republicans.
Exactly. We need Tom Stalcup in Congress. We need you to welcome him into your homes, into your diners, into your communities. Get to know him, vote for him, get out the vote for him, and he will be our next congressman. We're going to work hard for you, Tom, and
Thanks.
We're very glad you're doing that. Thank you. God bless you.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. Yeah.